Have you ever come across the striking words of Psalm 2:9, dear reader? They resonate with a power that stirs the soul. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Have you ever wondered what God truly meant with this powerful image? Or how the story of someone who faced the weight of rebellion and discovered the transforming strength of divine love would look like? Walk with me through this story, one that may warm your soul and reveal what it means to trust a God who breaks what needs to be broken in order to rebuild us. The story of João. At 54 years old, João sat quietly in the backyard of his modest home, in a small town bathed by a peaceful river. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange, and the sound of flowing water seemed to calm his restless heart. In his hands was a worn Bible, open to Psalm 2:9. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. The words, once read during a night of despair, made him reflect deeply on his life. The walls he had built, the battles he had fought, and the hope that was now starting to rise again. João had grown up in a family marked by constant conflict. His father was a harsh and controlling man, ruling the house with an iron fist. João quickly learned to protect himself with a hardened shield of pride. In his youth, he promised himself that he would be different, but eventually he fell into the same patterns. By 25, he had started a small construction business where his relentless determination brought him success. João became known as ruthless, with competitors, employees, and even himself. In this world, you're either strong or you get crushed, he would say, masking his loneliness behind a hardened stare. Married to Marcia, with 2 children, Lucas and Mariana, João's obsession with control began to push his family away. He wanted to shape everything his way, as if he were the potter of his own life. By 40, the castle he built began to crack. A major contract collapsed, leading João to lose nearly everything: money, reputation, trust. Marcia, exhausted by his harshness, asked for a separation. "You're destroying everything, João," she said through tears. Left alone, João felt as though his life was a fragile pot, shattered into pieces. One night, drowning his sorrow in alcohol, João noticed a Bible Marcia had left behind. Randomly flipping through the pages, he landed on Psalm 2:9. As he read about the iron rod and the shattered pottery, fear struck him. Am I the vessel being broken? He wondered. Or is God trying to smash something inside me? Desperate, João fell to his knees, pleading for a sign, anything that could pull him out of the abyss. The iron rod. The next morning, João made a decision. He needed help. He started attending a small church where he met Dona Alzira, a 62-year-old widow who led the prayer group. Alzira had a firm yet gentle way of speaking and listened to João's story without judgment. Psalm 2:9 speaks of God's power, João, she explained. The iron rod isn't meant to destroy you, but to break the chains holding you back. Pride, control, fear. God wants to remake you just like a potter reshapes clay into something new. Her words pierced João's heart. He realized that his life was like a poorly made vessel, full of cracks caused by his own choices. What he once saw as strength, pride, was, in fact, his greatest weakness. João started reading the Bible regularly, seeking to understand the God who could shatter nations, yet also mend broken hearts. His prayers changed. No longer was he asking God to restore his lost wealth, but instead to transform his soul. At 45, João faced yet another test. An old business partner, Roberto, approached him with a proposal, a construction project that promised to restore João's fortune, but involved shady dealings. It's just a shortcut, João, Roberto said with a smug grin. Do you know how the game works? João hesitated. The money could solve his financial problems, maybe even win back Marcia and the kids, or at least numb his guilt. But as he prayed, Psalm 2:9 echoed in his mind. The iron rod of God was stronger than any human plan. He declined the offer, choosing honesty, even if it meant more pain. The remade vessel. João started over from scratch. He found work as a simple mason, a humble job, worlds away from his former role as a boss. Yet, step by step, he began to find joy in honest sweat. In church, he became part of Alzira's prayer group, where broken men and women shared their struggles. João helped fix the church roof, repaint walls, mend whatever was broken. Each nail he hammered felt like another step in rebuilding his own life. Marcia, seeing João's transformation, slowly began talking to him again. It wasn't easy. The wounds were deep, but João, now humbled, asked for forgiveness with sincerity. "I was a broken vessel, Marcia," he confessed one evening, "but God, He's remaking me." Mariana, his daughter, was the first to forgive, embracing her father with tears. Lucas, more cautious, took time, but eventually began visiting João, quietly admiring the change in him. By 54, João no longer had the wealth he once pursued, but he had something far greater: peace. He opened a small, honest construction company. His home, now filled with laughter, his children, and even visits from Marcia, reflected the beauty of his restored life. In church, João led a group for men, sharing how God used the iron rod to break his pride and reshape him into a new man. One day, a man named Pedro, 40 years old, confessed, "Your story made me believe that God really can rebuild anyone." One afternoon, while repairing a wall at church, João received a letter from Lucas. "Dad, you taught me that true strength is letting God shape you," it read. João tucked the letter into his Bible right next to Psalm 2:9, tears of gratitude running down his face. He knew the divine potter had broken him, but only to rebuild him better. The meaning of Psalm 2:9: "You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel." This verse, nestled in Psalm 2, proclaims the sovereign authority of God and His anointed over rebellious nations. Originally directed toward the Messiah, it affirms that He rules with unshakable authority, shattering opposition like fragile pottery. But beyond its messianic context, this verse speaks to the human heart. It reveals God's power to break what separates us from Him: pride, fear, sin, and to rebuild us into something far better. The rod of iron, it symbolizes God's power and justice. For João, it was the collapse of his business, the loss of his marriage, the fall of his ego. God's rod wasn't meant to destroy but to discipline, humble, and ultimately transform him. The potter's vessel, like a flawed clay pot, João's life was cracked by poor choices. God, the potter, broke what was broken, in order to reshape him into a man of faith, humility, and love. A call to transformation. The verse reminds us that rebellion, whether in nations or in our own hearts, cannot withstand God's power, but His power is also tender, inviting us to let Him break what must be broken, so He can rebuild us for His purpose. Reflection for your heart. Dear reader, has your life ever felt like it was shattering, like a fragile pot broken beyond repair? Maybe it was a failure, a mistake, or the crushing weight of trying to control everything. Psalm 2:9 is a gentle but firm reminder. God, with His iron rod, breaks what holds us captive: pride, fear, sin. But He does not break to destroy. He breaks to rebuild. He is the potter who transforms broken shards into something beautiful. João discovered that being broken by God was the very path to restoration. And you, is there something in your life that needs to be shattered so it can be remade? Will you trust the potter? Will you let Him break so He can rebuild? May your life be shaped by God's love, transformed by His iron rod, and remade into a new vessel, filled with peace, purpose, and grace.